Hey guys, sorry that it's been so long since my last video. I've been pretty busy lately, and that's heavily hindered my ability to raid and also led me to create another video. I've had it conceptualized for quite some time now, but actually just finally did it. You can find the link below. It's not really a serious one. It's just something I kind of felt like doing because I'm egotistical and I thought it'd be funny. So with that, and me not being able to raid as much, and I got sick for like a week. That sucked. That's all out of the way now, so I finally present the next episode of Raiding Along with RoughRaptors, Volan, which is heavily requested. This is the final boss of the Infinity Gate, and he can be incredibly hard or relatively easy depending on how good your healers are. That's where the bulk of the fight is. It's completely scripted in the sense that you know exactly what is going to happen and when, and that's basically how strategies are easily derived from it. There's just a ton of strategies. So I'm going to go more into the mechanics as usual instead of telling you exactly how to do the fight. It's heavily dependent though on raid healing as said before, and for the composition of it, I recommend 3 tanks to make things easier, although it's doable with 2. 1 Defiler, 1 Archon, a Bard or an Oracle, and 4 to 5 AoE healers with 1 tank healers. Yeah, that's a lot of healing. If your tanks are staying alive with just AoE heals, feel free to drop your tank healer completely and either add a DPS or go with another AoE healer. It's probably not necessary if the tanks rotate their cooldowns well, since the most of the tank damage is on a 1-minute timer anyways. While I'm on the topic of tanks, any role of a tank will do, but I can say that 2 paladins are ideal due to Life's Rapture being incredibly good on this fight for one of the mechanics. The fight itself has a 12-minute enrage post-nerf, which was pretty recent, and this video, as a forewarning, is probably going to be pretty damn long, as there's a lot of mechanics. When you start the fight, you'll see that you can either attack Volan's left leg or right leg. Pick whichever you wish and just be consistent with it. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that your melee DPS is positioned in between his legs, just not under them, so they won't be crushed during certain mechanics. The way that you push Volan to the final phase is to defeat both of Volan's legs and reflect 6 bursts of energy, 3 on each side. This mechanic will happen when he says Volan propels a burst of energy towards and then your raid member's name. The raid member will then be followed by a ball of energy. Note that there are 2 cells on each side of the fight, and you want to kill the side cell that your raid is on immediately when this cell pops or when this message pops up, and then that player must run to the glowing blue area which appears once the cell is destroyed. I don't really have any good footage of this, so I apologize. Just take my word for it. That's kind of what happens. The burst of energy will then be reflected and hit Volan, breaking off a piece of his armor from that side. If the player fails, you must wait longer to push the phase, as he won't do that mechanic again for some time, and since you need 6 total successful mechanics to be completed, it's just going to prolong the phase. The player will also consequently be turned into a big black swirling ink of death, and they're pretty much screwed unless they're given the tank cooldown and a ton of healing. Once every minute, Volan will say, "Your cities will fall," and then proceed to spawn 8 red circles on the ground and punch them in the same order every time. I don't have that exact order for you. You're just going to kind of have to see it and figure it out. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person, I know. So these red circles must be stood in by the tank so the raid will not take damage, but the tank takes heavy damage, so they must pop some self cooldowns. This will happen once a minute, so the tank can rotate their 1-minute cooldowns as much as they want here. This is really the only time they're going to be taking damage, or at least heavy damage. So a maximum of 2 of these can be missed, otherwise it's probably going to be a raid wipe, as if a tank misses one of them, it deals heavy damage to the entire raid and applies a debuff to the raid, making them take even more damage for a period of time. You'll want to assign your tanks to specific red circles ahead of time so they always know where they're going, since this is scripted. One hard part about this, though, is that this mechanic can happen at the same time as Volan picks someone to shoot an energy burst at. So if that person is a tank, you either need to have a Defiler pop Unstable Transformation on himself and run into one of the red circles, or have another raid member sacrifice themselves by running into a red circle. Tanks can pop speed potions to get there fast enough. Or you can always just accept your RNG fate of death. One thing to note is that you really shouldn't stand in the direct center of the circles, as it sometimes will register as a miss and the raid will take damage instead of the tank. When Volan says your lands will burn, he will apply a debuff to 6 raid members at random, which are visible green debuffs on the raid frames. This debuff, or I guess these debuffs, last 20 seconds, and if all are not cleansed off by then, your raid will explode and you'll instantly die. So, whenever one is cleansed, it deals heavy raid damage, and be prepared to have a dedicated cleanser to do this as well. I recommend a cleric tank to do this because tanks don't do too much in this fight, as you'll see and have seen. So a cleric tank is handy. If you don't have one, you can really use anyone. Just make sure to have enough healing, as this can be a major choke point of the fight. One thing to be aware of is to not cleanse too quickly, or AoE cleanse in general, as that will wipe the raid. And this is also where paladins come in handy, as I said earlier. Paladin can use Life's Rapture when the cleanses start to heal through the majority of the damage and help the healers immensely. When Volan says extinction awaits you, everyone in the raid will get a red aura, and you need to spread out, and anybody inside of the bubble aura thing will be knocked back and take damage, and this also includes you. So if you're in somebody else's bubble, both of you will be knocked back and take extra damage. Although if you're alone inside of the red bubble, you'll just simply take damage. The effect ticks twice, and you can visibly see a missile effect hitting you. So after you see 2 missiles hit you, you know it's safe for you to move. Just be aware that if somebody else still has a red bubble, you can still be hit. Also during the fight, 3 ads named Malignant Saiyans will spawn and must be picked up by a tank. You're going to want to splash some DPS on them so they die, maybe even add a dedicated DPSer. Again, strategies change, but except for when they die, they spawn multiple little ads that must also be picked up by that same tank. You do not want to DPS these. Volan will do a big red foot smash with each of his feet, which is a red circle on the ground that kills any non-tank underneath them and applies a dot to the entire raid that must be healed through. But if a tank stands in it, they won't die. So, when Volan foot slams any of the small ads, basically the tank just needs to bring them inside of the circle, all of the small ads will die, and the leg that smashed them will take increased damage for a short period of time. So make sure that the little ads are all alive and underneath the leg that you're DPSing in order for you to kill it faster. So, combine all of these mechanics at the same time, and you get the first phase of Volan. It might not seem like much, but all of these mechanics meshed together can get pretty intense, especially in this next upcoming phase. So, after this, move up through the teleporters that you can see on the ground onto the platforms above you, which we refer to as 1, 2, 3, and 4. The platform that you're currently seeing us run to and be teleported to is referred to as 1, and also take note that if you take too long to take a portal up into the second phase area, you'll die because the floor becomes lava. It just doesn't actually have an animation. Upon arrival at the platform, you'll want to immediately start to DPS Volan's head and stand close to the edge of the platform that you're on for now, to delay the damage you'll take from some unavoidable ground AoE called Halo. Your healers should start spamming single target heals on the matrix that you can see in the center of the platform, while also keeping the raid alive throughout this damage. It's also wise to have the Defiler cast Unstable Transformation on the matrix to provide extra healing and a little bit more leeway for healers. When it reaches about 75%, the healers should stop and maybe just have one person heal it and let the HOTS tick it around up to 85%ish. Just make sure to not go above 90%, or you might accidentally wipe the raid. During this, he'll do a few things. He'll first do a swipe, killing anyone on platforms 2 and 4, and then next he'll start a channel and the floor will glow, doing damage to the entire raid, which I referred to as Halo before. After this, he'll start channeling a big laser on the platform to your left, which is number 2, and then the channel will stop at platform number 3. The laser will kill anyone on the platform that it's touching, but otherwise it'll just tick some AoE damage on the raid regardless of your position. When the laser reaches the third platform, you'll want to jump onto the orange pad to your left to go to the second platform to avoid the incoming swipe that will hit platforms 1 and 3 a little bit later. Wisps will also be spawning on platforms and will instantly kill any non-tank who goes near them. However, a tank can position themselves in between the Wisp and Volan's heads strategically to shoot a ball of energy after every attack and deal heavy damage to Volan. However, the Wisp retaliates and will hit the tank back for a heavy amount of damage. It's somewhat unresponsive though and doesn't always work, so just be aware of that. When hitting the Wisp, pop all of your self cooldowns here, as you won't really need them, aside from Life's Rapture. Save that. Just be very careful to not get yourself killed, as healers are going to probably be focusing on keeping the raid alive and healing matrices instead of healing you. Plants will also spawn with a visible AoE around them. Stay out of the plant AoE. It's pretty basic mechanic there. So here's where strategies change mostly from guild to guild. We used to put each group onto a specific platform and keep everyone alive that way. I recommend just finding out what works for you on this aspect of the fight, because there's so many options and there's not really one right way to do this. But during this time, he will cast Extinction again, so everyone needs to be appropriately spread out or you'll die from the damage and the knockback, because it'll knock you off the platform and then you're pretty much screwed. After Extinction ends, have your raid converge back onto Platform 2 and he will cast the raid-wide debuff cleansing mechanic again, followed by another laser. This time, when the laser reaches Platform 4, go back to Platform 1 and heal that matrix to 100% to spawn a shield around you, which will save you from his raid-wide one-shot. After he does this and you survive, you can use the orange pad in the middle-ish of the platform to jump onto his back and deal increased damage. However, make sure to jump off by running off of his arm in time or you'll be thrown off and die. I recommend running off when he has about 5 seconds left on his debuff. So during this time, your healers should jump to Platform 2 and heal the Matrix up to 80 to 90% again, just like Platform 1, while your DPS are on his back, killing him. So after Volan's recovered, the fight's pretty much reset itself by now. Head back to Platform 1, and now you're basically just repeating mechanics except for using Platform number 2 as your healing matrix to save you from his giant AoE and to create a shield instead of Platform 1. And so, with all that said, those are all the mechanics of the fight, and I'm going to stop here because you probably get the gist of it, and you see it all in our World First Kill video, which is in the link below. It's just that there's such a range of strategies, there's really no point to continue, because no matter what I say, someone else is going to come up with some derivation of it that's going to be different or possibly better. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, I'm really sorry for taking way too long on this video. I don't know how long it's going to be until I can do In Your Kata and Abominus. If I even do them, I might just skip to Greenscale and Achilleos and the mini bosses. I don't know. So, thank you for watching this really, really long ass video, because it's a long and complex fight. For Storm Legion at least. Doesn't really, you know, compare with some of the old Hammernail bosses, which again I might do sometime, but for now we'll see. Again, thank you, and tune in next year for the next video if I keep up at the rate of which I'm going.